Hello and welcome to Wake and Jake, myself, Davis Wimbledon. We are back. Super Bowl finale episode accidentally because I got married. And the biggest news ever is the pitch clock. We're going to talk about it. The internet was hot in the streets. The other day. And let's dive into it. We did a little bit on Talking Baseball, myself, John, Beebs, and Trev. And it's so funny, man. I mean, it's the definition of baseball being missing for this long because people were way too hot. It's a big change. So if you have no idea, the MLB instituted pitch clock. What are the actual numbers on it?
20 seconds with runners on, 15 with bases empty.
20 and 15. Pitch clock, there's certain rules. I think the batter only gets to step out once in an at-bat.
Tied in with it's its own rule, but part of the pitch clock. The pitcher can only disengage twice.
Right. So it's a whole new world, and there's a couple things going on. So it's early in spring training, and we're trying to enforce this as harshly as possible. And that's what we ran into. We ran into everyone who was skeptical about this nightmare in day one, and that's a double-edged knife, double-edged sword, double-edged knife sword.
Double-edged sword's the typical phrase if that's what you're looking for. I don't know if you're doing a play on it.
No, it's because I keep using this analogy, and I fully stole it from Jim, not on this topic at all, but for politics, it's called the horseshoe idea, I guess, and it's that everyone who's in the middle. So if you hold your hands up and you basically make the U symbol and you bend it in a little up top, I guess. The people up top that are the furthest away and hate this the most are actually on a similar wavelength, while the people on the flat line trying to be logical and normal about it are actually getting further apart at their furthest point. Not great, but the Red Sox-Braves game, 3-2. Bases loaded or runners on?
I think it had to be bases loaded, right?
I think so. Tie game, 6-6. 3-2. Batter in the box. Pitcher. Batter not fully in the box because he ends up being the bugaboo on here. Ump calls it. Batter was not in the box in time. Game over. By the way, it ended in a tie because it's spring training. And nothing
the result
really
doesn't matter.
Nothing really matters. So that was, I mean, sometimes, you guys have heard me talk through it before, sometimes I really question sports, and I almost think baseball wanted that to happen, to have it happen, to get the reaction and get it over with. And you saw every side, everyone that wanted to hate the pitch clock had the ammo that they needed forever. A game-deciding pitch, a 3-2 bases yuck pitch, instead of getting thrown, turned into game over, which is a nightmare. It's not sports, and that's the whole thing we're trying to get to. On the other side of the coin, we had a lot of quick games. And when I say other side of the coin, for a lot of baseball fans, that's not the end game. Our argument for a while has been that baseball fans like baseball. And we do. This rule is to chew up a lot of the fat. Relievers taking too long for no reason. Hitters. I love having a routine, but you can keep it tighter. It doesn't have to be an OCD, start over and touch every part of your body routine. Sorry to all my OCD listeners, I guess. Where does everyone stand on OCD?
Yeah,
Because that gets made fun of in movies and stuff. Do we care?
We're all like, oh, you're not supposed to say stuff like that, and then we all do. I don't think it's one people get actually outraged at.
So, the games were a lot shorter. I think the average game was 22 minutes shorter. It was pretty crazy. I think it was like 3:06 last year, so that gets us to...
Pretty good for an immediate chunk.
Instant. I do think part of that is, I think that'll come up a little bit because it's still spring training.
I was gonna say, there's also there are no stakes.
Also, week 1 of spring training, like you've got some pitchers that are like fastball only, or a lot of guys I've seen in their spring training for pitchers are usually fastball with like one off-speed pitch. So that way you get the hitters to not think you're only throwing fastballs. So I think that time will come up a little bit, but at the same time, a lot of the baseball truists, we love baseball, we don't care about speeding up. It's the same length as a football game. Yeah. But we can cut out some of the junk. And there's that viral tweet or something going around that was like, in football games and baseball games, there's like 18 minutes of action, like inside the whole thing. I don't know where they get that number. I have no clue. But the idea is to cut out some of the crapola, and it's working. And that's the bigger thing. The other thing that's happening is they're executing it to the full force of the law because it is the first time it's being used, and they have to. And they don't want that to happen in a big-time baseball game. So they're trying to hammer it in the relievers, in the hitters' heads. Be ready. Be in the box because you don't want to be the guy that when it's a 3-2 game-deciding pitch didn't step in the box quick enough so you got rung up. You don't want that. So MLB is enforcing it as strongly as possible.
And they said they were going to.
And which right now, and to the letter of the law, kind of sucks. I get that. I don't want to feed those people too much because they're kind of being a little too kooky right now because they want to win. But yeah, the clip that Jimmy had of Karinchak where he's in his windup and the foot has to be down with 0 on the clock or whatever it is. That's tough. If that happened in a playoff game or in an important regular season 8th inning where I think, Karinchak butters a lot of his bread, that would be awful, but it's not that. So where I think talking baseball as a whole kind of landed is the rule is going to be good. We're going to have to work out some kinks. There's going to have to be some flexibility. This was Jim's point to his credit. 15 and 20 seconds is arbitrary. I mean, they're just numbers. I
think it's just what they've done in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I don't think there was
for a
science
specific
behind
reason.
it. They were just like, how much time do you need? 15 and 20. We did this in the minors. Let's feel it out. Maybe that gets tweaked. Maybe it's a 17 and 22. Maybe it's not.
If they give it a month and immediately make it 20 and 25, okay.
Maybe they have it. Maybe they have it nailed. I do think, and this is where I think people are walking tall on it. Let's go back to PitchCom. I wasn't a big fan of PitchCom. I'll be honest. When it first showed up and it was on the catcher's knees and we'd come out of a sign stealing scandal and we're talking about sending, Bluetooth? I'm assuming that's what those things are on. I have no clue.
Yeah.
I felt like those signs could get stealed almost easier than regular pitches.
If you do some actual scheming,
Yeah, if you want to get really dirty, it felt like there was a route there. And guess what? It's coming out more and more that a lot of teams were doing funny business, huh? Not Astros level, but funny business.
not that.
And it looked weird, and pitchers couldn't hear. And I still think there's another iteration of PitchCom coming that can be better.
I think they're already rolling it out, right? Because I think this year they're saying the pitchers are going to be able to input the pitch now. So at minimum, that's a change that's coming to PitchCom.
I'm interested in that. I was hot about it. It felt like the game was heading in the wrong direction. About a week into PitchCom, it was like, okay, this is baseball now. We hate change, yet we adjust really good to things. This is a tangent that's almost not going to make sense, but I'll get it off my chest really quickly. Of being used to stuff and what matters. How many times has someone handed you a cell phone charging cord that you look at and you're like, this probably doesn't work? Like, we're all used to that, right? Like, how many times have you looked at a cell phone charging cord, probably an iPhone cord, that looks like gas station-y, and you're like, this cord doesn't work? Like, humans are used to stuff. If we were robots, wouldn't that piss us off a lot more? This should work. This should work so easily, but it doesn't. So I don't know if that has anything to do with humans getting used to stuff. I just kind of had to get that off my chest. It's a weird.
Just been thinking about that
it's just a weird part of our society. We just get so used to stuff so easily that by the time the season rolls around, this is going to be nothing. There will be the first time it happens in a regular season and people freak out.
There's going to be the first time it ends a game in the regular season.
There's going to be big moments that it does pop up early in the year, and that's going to stink. And if it happens to my Yankees, I'll probably freak out. And that's my biggest thing. Because, again, wherever you land on both sides of the fence, we need this, we don't need this. I do think it's good for the game, and it will be good for the game. It's going to come out to how the laws are enforced and how it looks, because there has to be a little bit of feel. The problem for me is the people that are enforcing these rules are the umpires. Umpires, if I had to rank people in the game of baseball that have the right amount of feel, they'd be low on the list. You know, there's one or two umps that you hear get it, and a lot of times we'll ask Trev, like, who are your favorite umps? And I think we're doing something fun with friend Dale Scott soon. Go check out his book, The Umpire is Out. We know Joe West's name, retired. Congrats, Joe. We know Angel Hernandez. You might have even heard C.B. Buckner's name thrown around recently because he refused to shake Oli Marmol's hand going back to a beef from last season. He's the umpire. He's supposed to be the neutral guy calling the game. He wouldn't shake the man's hand.
His actual job is to be the bigger person.
So in the 8th inning of the Cardinals game, and Giovanni Gallegos is out there twirling the pill, and C.B. Buckner's behind the dish, I don't know. Does he want to make that call, more than anything? I know it's a little recent and a little unfair, but also not. He wouldn't shake a guy's hand. I'm interested to see how they enforce the rule, because if they currently enforce it by the book, I don't love it. We're on the right path. I don't love it. I think they're not going to. I think they're going to be smart enough. I've even laughed. And maybe it's tweaking words, because the other thing that I used as a little bit of ammo, not against Jim this morning, but Jim got in the weeds yesterday, and I loved it. He got into old-fashioned Twitter wars with whoever wanted the smoke yesterday. I was about it. So I was in the comments, see what was going on, and James Smythe, Tone the Slab, tweeted out that in the rule book, there already is a pitch clock. I think it was 12 seconds, technically. The umpire could call it a ball.
Yeah.
I think it was something like that.
12 was the number.
So, technically, they added more time. But, again, did you ever see that rule enforced? We've been watching a lot of baseball, Beebs, the past few years. I've never seen that one punched.
That one's an offer.
So, if we have the rule and the game is going and the pitcher's about to make his pitch, which, hey, I know Karinchak is one of the worst people involved in this rule, right? The guy literally juggles on the mound.
He's one of the people they kind of made this for.
His leg was up and he was kicking, and that's where, again, you have to go back to the fact that this is day one of spring training. This isn't the season. If that was the middle of the season, yeah, that would have sucked. Technically Karinchak would have been in the wrong, right? Because the foot wasn't on the ground when the clock hit 0. If we're doing that, then the rule is kind of going to stink. Because I do think things have... Karinchak, even in that video, he swapped out the ball, which I think the clock's supposed to reset when you do that. Now, again, let's take 2 steps back. If pitchers are going to swap out balls, which they feel like they did...
They do anyway.
You need to make rules around that, right? So there's a ripple effect to when you make a new rule. And there's fun stuff that comes with it, the baseball side. I shouted him out before. I was watching Yankees Blue Jays. Vladito, 2 bombs already. He looks really good. They interviewed Kevin Kiermaier, and he was talking about the fun stuff, how guys are going to run the bases differently, how he's going to run the bases differently. And that ties into the bigger bags, too, and hey, if you're a base runner and you see the clock's ticking down, do you start getting a little bigger lead? Do you take off? There's fun parts to this pitch clock. You know, are guys going to have tendencies? Like, what if a pitcher and catcher can't agree on the pitch? Like, then does the pitcher just say, screw it, I'm throwing the heater? I don't know. I want to get to those fun ripple effects. We're not fully there yet because it's how will the rule be enforced? And I'm almost, how many times do you those 2 times a year you come across a bizarre baseball rule and you're like, how is it worded like that? The thing that I keep jumping back to in my head is in NFL games when the game clock hits 0, but you can still hike the ball. And how ridiculous of a rule that seems on paper. But guess what? When Karinchak gets called on that, it actually kind of slows down the game yesterday, right? Because also, guess what? When the regular season comes around, you think managers aren't going to be yelling if that happens. You think you don't think the pitcher's going to take a lap around the mound. You don't think that's going to cause like an incident? It will. So in the NFL, if every time that clock hits 0, which it's 3 times a game, would you rather have them do a 5-yard penalty and do another play? Or did they just decide one day, hey, let's, if it's around it, let's
0,
play through.
Way to beat.
So,
you got to think come regular season that specific play a Karinchak had. I assume that's going to be fine. Like the first however long that they're going to be strict about it. Yeah, no, they're trying to break everybody into this rule and get used to it. Once we're like accustomed to it, I think that's going to be all right.
This weekend on baseball Twitter felt political. It was pretty bad. Both sides thought they had ammo. I think more people are pretending to care than they really do because when the season comes around, they'll actually care about baseball, but we haven't had baseball in 4 months or whatever. So I don't know. I think we're going to be fine. The funniest part for me, and I already said it, but the fact that there already was a rule in the rule book. It just wasn't enforced. Having the clock on the field is a big thing. I saw our guy Carabas tweeting about, are people going to do fake clock countdowns like they do in college basketball to get shot clock violations? I'm interested to see all these ripple effects. And I do think it deserves to be said, when we start doing all of this, John Boy Media talking Yanks, I remember me and Jim, we used to scoff at the beat writers that were like, oh, rain delay. It'll be a long day at the office. Well, now that we've been in it a few years, some of those days can't wear on you.
If it's on podcast night, it's not fun. If you
can trim 20 to 30 minutes off a game, that's huge. That's massive for the players. That's why they love this. You'll rarely see a bad player quote about this. And for the viewer, it should end up being an okay product. Let's feel it out. Let's hope they tweak it and adjust it as they go. And I think the bigger thing is if you're on either side of this way too deep, you're in too deep. You're in too deep. They're not changing what the game is at its core. They're stopping the Steve Traxels and even our friend Ryan Yarborough. Throw the ball. Throw the ball. And that's not going to change your viewing of the game at all. So,
regardless of what side of this you're on, you're going to need to see more than one weekend of spring training games to know if you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
Come on.
And they were clearly trying to send a message. Their rule was already in the rule book. So, it's a point of emphasis. You see it every year. I feel like in football, you find out what penalties they're calling more. Same with basketball, baseball. They want to use this clock. I think it's going to be a good thing. Jimmy was really in the week. He was fighting shift people. If you're still someone fighting the shift, I got nothing for you at this point. The shift was not good for baseball.
They're still going to shade. It's just a harder play now.
Part of me understands the sport argument of be better at the sport and do better, and that's your solution. Beat the shift. Baseball didn't care, and we saw it, and we got to move on. And already the contact is up, the speed is up. There's going to be better defensive highlights.
I used to love defensive highlights.
Baseball is moving towards a better product. Anything you want to see, like, it's so easy to be tough on baseball and Uncle Bob and all that stuff. Is baseball making more of an effort for, do you like base running? I do. They're making more of an effort for that. Do you like better highlight defensive plays? They're trying to do that by getting rid of the shift. Do you like more hits? They're trying to do that by getting rid of the shift. Like, the game is taking really good steps. It's not like we're making this isn't going from like featured films to TikTok. Games aren't 3 innings unless you're playing MLB The Show with me and Shelfie. Like, this is gonna be good. I agree. If you're on it needs to be tweaked and changed, and there's parts you don't like, yeah, and you shouldn't. The first time, this is the first iteration. And if you love it, I think you're going to end up being right. That's why the love it side is kind of peacocking. Because in a while, we're not even going to notice this. What you should notice is the DraftKings Sportsbook. And Beebs, maybe we should put this in earlier. I don't know. Feel bad putting it at the end. DraftKings, America's top sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA as well. Wow. And I'm kind of getting into the NBA. That's going to be kind of the next part of the show. Had a nice little sports weekend. You can bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Also, we're going to have our Talking Baseball DraftKings gambling app coming up. Props. Starting to get really excited for that, especially reading some of the comments of the TPPs. Getting jazzed up on that. Download the app now and sign up with code BAKERS. New customers can place $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Code BAKERS, people. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, so a couple things. We'll do a little wide world of sports.